Hello, this is Lady Boulay, and welcome to Lady Boulay History, a journey through our past, from tragedy to triumph. Thank you for all of your support, for supporting this channel and for supporting my other channel. I really appreciate the encouragement and the support. So today I want to talk about a man from the Old West who was really like an armchair scientist, archaeologist, who made a great discovery, but he didn't get credit for it in his lifetime. As a matter of fact, it was 100 years after his discovery before he got credit for it, because as is always the case with Black Americans, somebody else tried to take credit for it. This is what we call intellectual theft. When you do something or discover something or invent something, and then somebody else is in line to take credit for it. So today we're talking about a man named George McJunkin, and the discovery that he made will probably take you by surprise, because it's really not something that we think about, but where archaeology and history and prehistory are concerned, it is a very important discovery. George McJunkin was born enslaved in Midway, Texas in 1856. When he was about 9 years old, the Civil War ended, and that freed the enslaved people. It has to be said up front, George McJunkin was a gifted young man. He learned to read and write and speak Spanish on his own, in addition to learning how to play the fiddle and the guitar. He also learned how to ride. He was a great rider and the best roper in the West. He worked on the ranches out west in Texas, Colorado, and New Mexico. And he was such a good worker that every ranch that he worked on, he became the foreman, because he was better at the job than anybody else. He lived to be 66 years old. Unfortunately, there is no record of a wife or children. He spent all of his time out west, and what he is known for is being a great cowboy, a great rider, and the discoverer of something very important. So George McJunkin became incredibly skilled at what he did, and pretty soon all the local ranch hands were well aware that he was one of the most talented cowboys around, and it didn't stop there. He also had an insatiable curiosity, especially when it came to learning about science. So he was a multi-talented man. So what was this great discovery? Well, in August of 1908, an enormous flood swept through Folsom, New Mexico. It claimed the lives of 18 people. Shortly thereafter, George McJunkin went to Crawford Ranch, where he was the foreman, to get a handle on the damage that had been done to the ranch. He wasn't expecting to find the ranch in good shape because the whole town had been flooded. As he was patching up a fence, he entered an arroyo where he discovered remains of several giant prehistoric bison. Those remains, those bones, were exposed where the flood had deeply eroded the arroyo bed. In other words, there had been a dry creek. The creek had dried up, but underneath that creek, there was still damp, and those animals' bones had been fossilized in that creek for thousands of years, and they didn't even know it because it was so deep underground. But once that water came and flooded that dry creek, it exposed those animals' bones, and it was quite a discovery. Being an amateur scientist, McJunkin recognized the significance of what he had found. He left the site undisturbed, except for recovering a few sample points, because when he went back and told somebody about those great big bones, they were not going to believe him. So he had to have something to show to make people believe what he was saying. Now, for several years, this is where the problem comes in, because what he had discovered was very important in the world of science. But for several years, he tried to interest archaeologists, but with little success. Archaeologists are scientists who go and dig up things from the past to try to make sense about what happened in the past, to tell us about how the people lived, what animals they lived among, what foods they ate, what dishes they used, so forth and so on. That's what archaeologists, anthropologists, and paleontologists go and dig up things from the past to help inform the future. In 1918, George McJunkin sent sample bones to the Denver Museum of Natural History, and they sent a paleontologist named Harold Cook to the site to examine it. Now, he saw the site. He knew this was an important discovery, but they did not do an excavation to dig up those bones and study those bones to see what was all down there. Because once you make a discovery like that, you're supposed to go and do a dig and a dig and a dig till you dig it all up. So they went. They saw it was important, but they did not authorize an archaeological dig to find out how much of it was there and how far, because they can determine how old those things are. They have instruments to determine how old a tree is, how old bones are, how old things are. So they knew this was an important site, but they would not authorize an archaeological dig because a black man had brought that to their attention. In 1918, they were not going to risk a black man getting any credit for discovering something that important. George McJunkin spent 14 years trying to get somebody to come to that site and do an excavation and study those fossils. 14 years of writing letters and pleading with experts to come look at the giant bison bones. Nobody showed up. In 1922, he died. A few months later, one of those experts that he had tried to get to come and do an excavation showed up. He brought a whole team to investigate the site in depth. Shortly after that, they knew that George McJunkin was right. They knew he was right all along. And this was when they began to excavate that site. In 1926, an expert at the Colorado Museum of Natural History came down to visit the site, and this was when they wrote it up, and this man named J.D. Figgins tried to take credit for this discovery. When they excavated the site, not only did they find the remains of ancient bison, but they found other animals that had gone extinct at that site. And they also found spears with stone points, which indicated that the indigenous people had existed along with those giant bison all those 12,000 years ago. So that was another find at that site, which they didn't give George McJunkin credit for that. They went and found a spear at the site, and so they are trying to take credit for that. But eventually, George McJunkin did get credit for his discovery, and now he has been inducted into the Hall of Great Westerners of the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum, not only for being a great cowboy, a great roper, and a great bronco rider, but he's also credited as being the discoverer of the site where the great bison bones were discovered. Now, that great bison that he discovered had gone extinct at the end of the last ice age. That lets you know how old those remains were. George McJunkin's discovery of the Folsom Site changed New World archaeology. It shows that people had lived in North America since at least 9,000 BCE, which we would say before Christ. And that's 7,000 years earlier than what the scientists originally thought. This discovery helped scientists to go back and redo what they had assumed, because now they had evidence that not only were these animals extinct longer ago than they realized, but also that the indigenous people had been on the continent of North America much longer than they said. The native people always said that they had been here longer, but the historians argued that they had not been here longer because they didn't have any factual evidence. They didn't have any artifacts left over that would date them back 12,000 years ago. But with this discovery, it dated them back because those spears that they had been using with those animals indicated that human beings used those spears. George McJunkin was born into slavery, but he was a gifted black man. And he did not let the fact that he had been born into slavery and that he was a black man stop him from growing and learning and knowing what he knew. He knew what he had done was extraordinary, and he pressed the point. It is very unfortunate that he was not given the credit in his lifetime that he deserved. But he has received that credit posthumously. So George McJunkin is buried at Folsom Cemetery in Folsom, New Mexico. So if you ever happen to go to Folsom, New Mexico, check out the grave of this hero, George McJunkin. Thank you for listening. Subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, share the video, and as always, have a great day.